It's Josie, founder of Women Who Lead with Heart and the very special Create More Confidence workshop group, coming on live to give you my good training, my good learning. Today's topic is dealing with dominant personalities. If you're joining me live, come online and say hi, give me a hello, a wave. If you're joining on replay, give me a hashtag replay so I know who's out there. It's all about connection and community in this group, and it really helps me to know who is joining. I am so excited to bring this training to you today. If you are a strong and sensitive leader like me, you may have found challenges with dealing with dominant personalities. It doesn't mean that we need to change who we are or that there's something wrong with how we operate in the workplace or even with the other individual. It means that we need to learn some serious skills. So I'm so excited to share this with you today. How do we deal with dominance in the workplace or just in our lives? Let's talk a little bit about what it is first, just to level set, just to get us all grounded in this topic. What is dominance? When we talk about dominance, we're talking about the desire to take control of a situation. It's not necessarily a bad thing, right? We're talking about the desire to get things done or to simply be goal oriented and task oriented and achievement oriented. We could be talking about a dominant personality that wants to win, that's very competitive. We could be talking about dominance. We're talking about somebody who's very ambitious, who has the drive and strive. So, dominance is not necessarily a negative trait. In fact, it's needed in companies and corporations and communities and in the world. Dominance is the characteristic that gets things done. Dominance is the characteristic that helps form leadership in a community. A group needs a leader, and often it will be the dominant personality that emerges as a leader. Not always. I think some of you who are joining are here on this talk because you know that dominance has a dark side. Taken too far, this classic quality of leadership can actually be negative. So you may know a dominant personality in your life that doesn't just want to take control of a situation, they actually want to take control of others. They may get things done, but they also may take it so far that they're bossy and domineering. They may have a very laudable and admirable goal orientation and ambition, but if they require obedience and the submission of others in the process, that's not positive. They may take charge and offer leadership, but if they're abusive and domineering, it's definitely gone to the dark side. So, we're talking about whether you have experienced dominance in your life, in your social life, your relationships, your family life, at work. You probably have the impression of dominance being a negative trait. And that's what we're going to focus on today. Not the positive traits of dominance that lead to leadership, but what happens when it goes too far? What happens when it goes from getting things done, from being productive, from being ambitious, to actually overstepping boundaries, being abusive, being domineering, lording over, being bossy, creating submissiveness in others? It can be really uncomfortable to experience a personality like that that wants to push somebody down, that wants to win at all costs, that wants to power over, not have just power. Can you relate to this? I want to say right up front, it is not necessarily a masculine trait. Some of us may be instantly thinking of very masculine, domineering personalities that we know, either personally or in government, in the world, or stories that you've heard. But it's not necessarily a uniquely masculine trait. Feminine dominance is also something that can be out there in the world. In fact, the picture that I used to advertise this talk showed two women sort of in a tangle for dominance and for primacy. So it's not something that's straight down the gender role identity. So, what I want to share with you today is I actually had the opportunity to learn about dominance with horses. Is there anybody out there that's like a horsewoman who understands horse behavior? I am not. I am not a pro. I'm not somebody who grew up around horses or understands horse behavior, but I had the opportunity to study leadership using horses as both a metaphor and an environment to understand my own leadership. I studied with a wonderful woman named Linda Kohanov from Amado, Arizona. She is this very famous woman in horse culture. She wrote a book called The Five Roles of the Master Herder. And what she has done is created a model for socially intelligent leadership based on the roles she sees displayed naturally in a herd of horses. She claims that there is in this non predatory group, horses are prey, not predators, but they're powerful. 1,500 pounds and 8 feet tall of a non predator animal will model a social structure when they're together that simulates what humans do. And what she found was that in history, there were these icons of leadership like George Washington or Winston Churchill, who were really talented horsemen that were able to extrapolate the lessons they learned of handling horses with how they handled social structure in their leadership. So, come on me with this journey, follow me if you will. She claims that there is a role in a herd of horses that is the dominant one, the horse that will assume the primary alpha role in the group, and that this horse will adopt certain characteristics that maybe we see in human behavior, maybe we see in the workplace. It's a type of personality, if you will, whether it's in a person or in a horse, that will sort of charge for no reason, that's not there to attack, but will want to assert dominance, that will alienate others by sort of charging at them and showing, I'm the alpha, I'm in charge. This type of horse will withhold resources. Basically, when the hay comes, that horse will go first and sort of like block the area for the other horses until it decides that the other horses can have access. So it establishes sort of like lording over, being the alpha, needing to be first, needing to win. And what we learn from dealing with this type of horse behavior is very similar to dealing with human behavior. That if we're using this as a model for socially intelligent leadership, actually trying to beat this horse, trying to shame this horse into submission, trying to meet power with power brings on rage. It brings on a horse that will rear up, that will actually become aggressive. It doesn't work for us to try to power over a dominant horse. We have to find a way to work with. And this is where socially intelligent leadership comes into play. This is what we have, ladies. We can actually, regardless of where we are on the power dynamic, we can muster up our own internal confident power to meet something like a 1,500-pound non-predator animal that feels scary in a circle pen and hold our boundaries to learn how to master our own leadership. So this is what I did. I traveled to Amado, Arizona, and I met with this Linda Kohanov, and I learned her models for this socially intelligent leadership through working with horses in a round pen with a dominant horse. And I don't know much about horses. What happens with a dominant horse when you're in a pen, if you don't learn how to hold your boundary, if you don't learn how to use nonverbal communication and sometimes verbal communication to hold your own with a dominant being, what will happen is that horse will herd you into the fence. It will push your boundary. It will raise its head to you. It will chase you around the pen if you don't learn how to hold your space. So I'm here in this circle pen with a dominant horse without a whip. I'm not there to make it submissive. But I am there to make sure I protect my space because it actually could be dangerous for me. So it's a very real leadership exercise, if you can imagine. There was a time when I was in a pen with one of the dominant horses, and I was charmed by it. Dominance can be charming and winning over. And the horse started to sort of nuzzle me or push up against me, and it even nibbled at the belt loop on my jeans and kind of started tugging a little bit and even lifted me up ever so slightly by my belt loop. And I was laughing. I would think I was a little bit taken aback and maybe nervous. And Linda, the horsewoman, said, "Watch out, Joe. That horse is asserting dominance over you. And if you let it go too far, it will be dangerous for you." Like the horse could lift me up by my jeans. Not a safe thing. So I needed to learn how to hold myself physically with this power animal. And these lessons have carried forward in my personal life, in my work life, in my professional life, how to hold my space. I'm going to teach you these lessons now. Are you with me? It's about establishing boundaries. It is about being direct. It is about speaking the language of dominance. That was the lesson I learned of horse work. I needed to meet the horse in by looking at it in the eye and letting it know what my space was so that they knew they didn't have it was almost like they needed a boundary from me. Otherwise, they didn't know what to do with themselves. They would just charge me towards the fence. It was a relief for the horse to know I had my own space and they didn't have to work me. It's kind of an interesting concept. It was like their default mode would have to be expressed unless and until I established my boundary. And that almost made the horse relax. If I held my breath, if I was tense, if I was really nervous and afraid, the horse could feel it. And there would be that tension between our relationship until my coach told me, "Joe, breathe." And I would have to and like let my diaphragm relax and let the air move. And the horse would mirror me and actually do that sputtering thing, that where it would shake its head and it would relax too. So the horse was taking cues from me. Even as a dominant, higher, bigger being, it needed me to hold my own and to establish my own boundary for it to know that it could relax too. I have found this happens in the workplace. I have a very dominant boss, and when I am on the phone with him, and he does happen to be male, as I said, it's not always a gender thing. And if I feel him barking at me or coming at me or aggressing towards me or using power over or starting to use that dominance, I can do the same thing, even when it's just on the phone, by audibly taking a breath and gently sighing, not an exasperated sigh, not a like, "Oh my gosh, I can't even believe this is happening" sigh, which might incent more dominance. I can actually non-verbally lower the frequency of the drama between us by slowing things down, by relaxing my own breathing, and by establishing some calmer energy. And it can be reflected back to me. You would be amazed how many times, if you gently sigh when there's dominance coming at you, you can get the other participant to also slow down and maybe even take a deep breath and sigh as well. Fascinating. When dealing with people, you can use their first name to de escalate the frontal attack that you're getting. It sort of like shakes them up and realizes you're holding your boundary, you're naming them. Here's some other more factual ways of dealing with dominance that maybe don't have to deal with like the horse behavior. If you're dealing with a really dominant personality, being direct is definitely helpful, and saying things without beating around the bush helps establish a very clear boundary. Like, "I don't like the way you spoke to me in the meeting yesterday. It had an impact of making me feel embarrassed and ashamed in front of my direct reports. I would appreciate it if you never do that again." Speaking like that does not actually, it's what the dominant personality needs to know so that they can stop pushing you towards the fence. They can know, okay, there's the boundary. Staying in facts and data helps dealing with a dominant personality. So it's not as helpful to be speaking in narrative or in prose or in metaphor. When you're dealing with a dominant personality at work, staying in facts and data is very helpful to help illuminate your point of view and help that person stop charging at you. And then the third tip, so the first was be direct, the second was to stay in facts. The third tip I have is then you allow that individual to save face. It doesn't work to try to win over a dominant personality by you winning and creating submissiveness in them. That creates shame, and shame creates rage in a dominant personality. You want to allow for space for the individual to step down, not to admit defeat or to become submissive to you. You want to allow a space to allow that dominant personality not to have to keep headbutting or fold and surrender, but to just de escalate and realize that they can change course. That's the gracious, socially elevated way of dealing with dominance. Are you following me with all these tips? Can you imagine that it could work for you? The last thing I want to say about dealing with dominance is if it is very threatening to you and you feel nervous, if you feel challenged, if you feel chased, if you feel like your boundary is being crossed, if it makes you scared, we always need to realize our own power. We always get to choose. Sometimes in a balance of powerful versus submissive, in dominance versus less dominant, we feel like we're caught in a drama and we need to stay there and we need to try to feel it out or work it out or heal it out or win or lose. You can opt out. This is choosing powerfully. When I am in the circle pen with a dominant horse, if I'm not enjoying the lesson anymore, I have the power to get out of the pen. That's an important lesson that we need to realize. That even if you feel like you're powerless, you always have the power to opt out of the relationship, to tender your resignation, to find your own internal confidence, to draw a boundary, to say what's okay and not okay, or to just take yourself out of the struggle. If this doesn't feel doable for you, if it feels exciting but scary, if it feels like, oh, if only I ever could learn that, you I'm calling you to action. Reach out. I can teach you how to do these things. Not because I took a clinic in Arizona with horses, but because I know how to deal with dominance in the workplace with people by first mastering and mustering your own confidence through self awareness and self management. How to hold yourself in conflict, how to deal verbally and non verbally with an aggressive personality so that you can feel like you have the space and freedom and ease and comfort to do your best work. And if you don't, that you have the comfort and confidence to opt out and leave. This is what I teach, ladies. I'm all about creating confidence in the workplace. If this is something you want to learn more about, find me in the comments below. I'll send a link in our comments for how you could book a free call with me, and maybe signing up for my leadership program could be right for you. And that's what I have for you tonight. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.